Hello, this is Debbie, and thank you for joining me for another Halloween card. Before we get started, I want to invite you to join my new Happy Mail Club. Once a month, I'll be selecting a member to receive some Happy Mail, something that I created the previous month. So sign up today. The link is in the description box below. Now back to the fun video. I'm going to start off with the backgrounds for these. I'm going to do some Distress Oxide ink blending with some new to me colors of Distress Oxide. Starting off with Shabby Shutters. The design that I'm trying to do or replicate, because I had accidentally done one earlier, is somewhat of a night sky or cosmos kind of feel. I haven't done those before. I really enjoyed making these. So I'm starting off with the Shabby Shutters down the center, kind of diagonal, because I want that to be kind of the constellation that you see in way deep in the sky. So I'm just putting some of that color down. And then I'm going to heat set this. The reason I'm doing that is I want some of this green to be able to show through some of the other colors. I don't really want it to blend real well on there. And I felt that heat setting it may help to achieve that goal. So next I'm adding another color. I'm going to go ahead and add some ripe persimmon. And I know that this pretty much looks like a hot mess, but it will look better in the end. I'm going ahead at this point and adding some Dusty Concord to add some purple to the sky. Once I'm done with adding all of these colors, I'm going to go over everything with some black soot to give it that deep, dark nighttime sky. I got tired of getting my fingers in the ink, so I've grabbed just a scrap piece of cardstock to protect my fingers. I have a tendency to get ink pretty much everywhere, and I don't want it to get on some part of the card that I don't want it to. And as usual, I am making a bit of a mess, so I'm just using a baby wipe and chamois to just clean everything up as I go along. I decided I didn't have quite enough green in there, so I'm going to try to add some to that center area. I did find that it started blending with the ripe persimmon, so I'm not sure it gave me quite the effect that I was looking for at that time. So now that I've got that basic constellation done, I'm going to go ahead and bring in the black soot to deepen the sky. Since I'm going to be adding so much dark black soot ink onto this panel, I decided to go ahead and speed up the video for you. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of splatter. Next I'm going to use another product that I've had in my stash and not used for quite a bit. I'm going to use some Perfect Pearls to add a little bit more of that whiter, more glittery, shimmery kind of splatter. So I'm just using a little bit of that mixed in with some water. And you can tell that I don't really know how much I'm supposed to be using. I put a very small amount on my glass media mat to try to mix in with the water to give some splatter. And it turned out it wasn't enough to be able to do much with, so I keep mixing and remixing, and hopefully next time that I do this, which won't be too long from now, I'll know to put more to start off with, that it's okay. It's just that this is a product that I have not used that much, and it turns out it's gorgeous. I think my main problem is I don't use a lot of the things that make a huge mess. I'm constantly re-cleaning everything as I'm working along, and I need to get past that. Like you, I'm still learning every day, and this is one of those techniques, one of those products that I really want to use more of. I want to start working on some mixed media type of things, and those are very, very messy, but I just love the way that the Perfect Pearls is turning out. I'm even trying a technique that I saw Tim Holtz use when he was explaining on one of his videos how to use this brush, which I kind of messed up and blocked video on that one. It's supposed to make it a lot easier to manage. I didn't find that it was so, but again, I've had this in my stash and I have not used it. I think I've probably had that sitting there in with my other brushes for at least a year or so, and I've never actually used it on a card until this one. And as you can see, I went back to just the regular brush to add a few more splatter droplets on there. I think what I just need to do is I just need more practice on all of these. But that goes to show you, you can do this. Any of the things that you've got in your stash, pick them up, use them, give them a try. You'll be really surprised at how well things turn out. So now I've got my heat gun out. This is the Crafted from Ranger heat gun to try to get everything heat set. I wound up making a second panel for the card that I'm preparing for the video today because I did not heat set this well enough. I'm going to have some trouble with some of the embossing powders coming up because things stuck on there wrong, and so I wound up making a completely separate second panel for another card. But I typically make more than one card at a time anyway. For the focal point of the card, I'm using these stamps from Simon Says Stamp that came out, I believe it was last year. So if the hat fits. So I'm going to be using that one and picking out one of the sentiments in there to use and one of the hats, and then I'm going to go on and emboss all of that. For the embossing, I was debating between this gold embossing powder from Recollections and this new silver embossing powder from Ranger that I had just gotten. Ranger wound up winning out. I used the gold on another card of the same design, and I decided I wanted to try it out with the silver. I'm covering the panel pretty well with powder from my powder tool to try to take care of any kind of issues with the embossing powder sticking. And then I'm pouring some of the embossing powder on there to see whether or not it was dry enough, whether or not it was going to work. And it looked like it was mostly, but there was a little bit of stick, but I thought it was still okay. I don't emboss a lot. I'm in Florida and we always have to have the air conditioner on because it's roasting, and right now it is beginning of September and it's still really, really hot throughout Florida, even with the hurricane and such this weekend. But I still wanted to do some embossing. I love the look of it. I don't like the mess, and the mess is caused most of the time because my AC is hitting things around. So I'm taking my Watermark Resist ink from Ranger. This is a very old ink pad that I'm going to have to replace. I realized while I was making these cards that it's starting to fall apart on me. But I'm taking one of those stamps. This is the stamp that says, "We all have a bit of magic in us." I love that. That is just too cute. So I'm taking that stamp, putting it on an acrylic block, and then putting it into that ink. One thing to caution, because this is a mistake that I made, don't press too hard. I tend to use my stamping tool for most of the stamping that I do, and sometimes they don't come through as clear as I'd like to, so I think that's transferring over to what I think I need to do with my acrylic blocks. I wind up pressing too hard on those. So here I'm just going ahead and pouring some of that embossing powder over it to see how that one's going to go. And then I'm taking a look at it, and I don't like the way that the W looks as the first letter. It looks like there's just too much powder there. I got out my pokey tool to see if I could maybe scrape some off from between the two lines of the W. That didn't really work too well. Got out a brush and I tried some with that. And if that wasn't bad enough, I decided to put some more embossing powder on it again. Not real sure why I was expecting a different result when I hadn't changed the ink on there, hadn't really changed anything other than brushed the powder off. Why putting more powder on would fix it. It didn't work. At this point, I just got frustrated and I took all of the embossing powder off, and was going to try to wipe it all down, see if I could redo it, let it dry some more. Got out my heat tool, trying to salvage this because I really liked the panel that I had created. Putting some more powder on there from my powder tool. Finally, I gave up and I just made another panel. So I'm going to go through the steps on this one of adding the stamp on there and the embossing powder, and this one turns out much better because it was drier when I put that down, and I didn't go back and try to redo everything. I think just pressing too hard is probably what my issue was with the entire thing. I just pressed the block on there too hard, and that means that the little rubber stamp, the transparent stamp, wound up smooshing a little bit and got a little too much ink on there. But it still turned out okay. So this one, I did grab my heat tool and I melted all of the embossing powder on that real pretty sentiment. So next I am running my powder tool over the corners and the edges of the panel again, and I had picked out one of the hats from that stamp set. I'm going to be basically putting them around in a circle all around the edges of the card. And we'll be going over those as well with that silver embossing powder. Once I got everything embossed and the embossing powder cool, I decided to just trim this down a bit. I'm trimming it down so it's going to be able to fit well on the front of one of my card bases. And then I decided to do something that I've seen Christina Warner do on a bunch of her videos. I'm going to run some embossing ink around the edges of the card panel that I have left, and then I'm going to do some more of that silver embossing powder on there. This is where I discovered that the pad itself is falling apart and why I'm going to have to replace it. I adhered the panels to the front of a couple of card bases and added some sequins, gems, and little bats to the front. Here I'm showing both the gold and the silver versions of it. I think I like the silver better. You let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.